Calling the House Un-American Activities Committee to order, Chairman J. Parnell Thomas of New Jersey opens an inquiry into possible communist penetration of the Hollywood film industry. The committee is seeking to determine if Red Party members have reached the screen with subversive propaganda. Mr. Thomas takes an impartial stand in his opening talk.
I want to emphasize at the outset of these hearings that the fact that the Committee on Un-American Activities is investigating alleged communist influence and infiltration in the moving picture industry must not be considered or interpreted as an attack on the industry itself, nor should our investigation be interpreted as an attack on the majority of persons associated with this great industry. I have every confidence that the vast majority of movie workers are patriotic and loyal Americans.
A long list of prominent motion picture witnesses appear before the committee. Speaking for the films, Eric Johnston, president of the Motion Picture Association, talks frankly concerning the attitude of the producers.
We're accused of having communists and communist sympathizers in our employ. Undoubtedly, there are such persons in Hollywood, as you will find elsewhere in America. But we neither shield nor defend them. We want them exposed.
The Smith Act, also known as the Alien Registration Act, was a crackdown against people that wanted to overthrow the government. This was enacted during the communist scare of the 1940s. The United States saw a countless number of countries fall to communism around them and knew, for sure, that they were next. This was just another case of a government overreaction to a problem that was not as big as seen in the public eye or made out to be by politicians. A precaution that the government put forth was, if you were a non-citizen adult, you had to register with the government. In 4 months, over 4.5 million aliens had registered. Most people recognize the act by its use against political figures and organizations. Out of all the convictions made under the Smith Act, many of them were thrown out because they had been deemed unconstitutional. Some cases were not so lucky.
America!
The Dennis and Yates cases were two totally different cases but played a role in each other's overall ruling. The case Dennis vs. United States was created around the General Secretary of the Communist Party USA, Eugene Dennis. The government was investigating whether Dennis still had First Amendment rights if he was seen as trying to overthrow the government. The court's 6-2 decision left Dennis hopeless. He had been convicted of organizing and conspiring to overthrow the government, as well as destruction of the United States government by force and violence. Yates was a different story altogether. They were charged with the same charges of trying to overthrow the government by force and violence, but they had a different outcome than that of the Dennis case. The court examined the Dennis case and tempered its prior ruling. Yates was not convicted because his actions were not of that to achieve the goal of overthrowing and destroying the United States government.
In June 1950, a right-wing newsletter known as Counteract released the Red Channels, the report of communist influence in radio and television. It was evident that people across America had made the observation that communism had infiltrated the American culture. This is made clear because the Red Channels was not just an analysis of communism in the United States. It was a list of 151 names of entertainment's Communist Party members, or those expressing similar ideas. The release of the Red Channels was just one of many anti-communist movements throughout the 20th century.
When President Truman instated Executive Order 9835 upon Congress, he had done something never before seen in the U.S. government, creating the first general loyalty program the country had ever seen. The idea behind it was to root out communism influences within the government by investigating any suspected communist. Truman used this policy for his own benefit while trying to hush critics and gain support. In the end, the order led to the Second Red Scare and Senator McCarthy's rise to power, and did more to frighten the American people than to protect them from communism.
HUAC's decline began in late 1950s around the same time McCarthy's. Even though the decline began in the 50s, the group was not abolished until 1975. During the 60s, a new generation of Americans began to target huac with political satire and anti-huac groups. The Un-American Committee had lost its influence on the people while supporters grew smaller in number. Even ex-President Truman, who once used the group to his advantage, criticized it by saying it was the most un-American thing in the country today. The lack of followers led to a lack of power, which brought an end to the committee. Its decline symbolized the end of hysteria over communism in the United States, and a more civilized society emerged from its ashes.
The huac began to flourish throughout the 1940s. They had created their first systematic Hollywood blacklist. The members of this group were 10 Hollywood employees, ranging from screenwriters to actors to musicians. These men, known as the Hollywood 10, were cited by the huac to contempt of court for refusing to give testimony, ultimately leading to the firing of these 10 employees, later to be known as the Waldorf Statement. The original investigation behind the Hollywood blacklist was created to find out which American movie professionals were sympathetic to the Communist Party. As the 40s progressed, more movie professionals were condemned to this list, creating a modern witch hunt. As said by Adolphe Menjou, "I am a witch hunter if the witches are communists. I am a red baiter. I would like to see them all back in Russia." Menjou was a member of the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals, a group of people brought together in Hollywood to testify and help the huac create a broader list of communist supporters. Continuing to grow into the 1950s, before the final break of the Hollywood blacklist, the list had escalated to over 330 members banned from Hollywood.
After a closed-door meeting by the 48 motion picture company executives at New York's Waldorf Astoria Hotel, the famous Waldorf Statement was released. This statement was given as a response to the contempt of court issued to the Hollywood 10 and the other 300-plus employees being considered for blacklisting for involvement with communism or being communist sympathizers. These 48 men came to the conclusion that anybody being blacklisted was not beneficial towards the motion picture industry, thus causing them to be temporarily fired from lack of usefulness in the industry until able to be acquitted or declared a non-communist supporter under oath. These bold actions led to a new set of requirements to be hired for business by these 48 executives. As a final motion, the Waldorf Statement allows the innocent to be protected with free speech held by them and to have nothing subversive or un-American to be shown on screen.